All right, so this is a bit of an update since I actually created the video and the blog post about the Zhiyun Crane 2S. So here's the situation, and I'll go into further details further into the video, but I wanted to back up some information, some backstory to the whole situation. Before publishing the review, I reached out to Zhiyun to let them know my concerns and things like that, and I wasn't really given a favorable response. I was going to give them a chance to send out a new unit just in case this was an issue with just this particular unit, but the response that I got was basically saying that, and I'll explain further into the video, that the screws to the middle piece do come really tight from the factory, and other people have had the similar experience. I was basically told to just tap the back end and try to get that loose. No resolve at all. And in the email response that I got from Zhiyun about the issue with how like the vertical mode was hitting the back of the gimbal, there was no mention of that at all. So it's unfortunate that I got that kind of response, and for those reasons, this is why I'm titling the video "Do Not Buy or Skip This Gimbal." I really battled on even posting this review because I don't like negativity, but I also want to be transparent and share my experiences with you. So I hope that you find value with this review, and I hope that you find value that I do try to be transparent. I just don't post about the positive stuff. The other part that I'm really hesitant to even mention is that yes, they did provide this gimbal for review, not in the fashion that I prefer. They required me to purchase the gimbal first, and the first half would be refunded once I provided that information of the purchase. The rest of the gimbal would be refunded once I submitted the review. So I could have just posted the review without letting them know the issues. I was trying to just be respectful in that kind of way. But again, I had that kind of response. So I reached out again, and they said that they would refund the rest because I had the review complete. Actually, what they requested me to do was just to do an unboxing video for Amazon reviews. I'll let you decipher how that should be interpreted. But so I'm not doing this out of spite. I'm not doing this to try to put them in a bad light, but I do want to share my experience. So they have also not refunded the last half of the gimbal. So that's really unfortunate that I had this bad experience with a company that I thought was rather reputable in the business. This was a longer update than I expected. So without further ado, please enjoy the rest of this video. Thanks.
We're making the world a better place, one person at a time. Making the world a better place, one day at a time. And it starts right now. Change the world.
Zhiyun has made itself a good reputation in the gimbal world, and I was super excited about getting my hands on the new Crane 2S, for a few reasons. In this review, we'll cover mostly my experience and thoughts, but first a few key highlights and availability. Keep on watching to see why I was left a bit disappointed. First up is the Crane 2S's highlights. What sets the Crane 2S apart from other gimbals are a few things. You can both be in landscape or vertical orientations, not to mention it's easy to transition from one mode to the next. And speaking of transitions, you can transition from the gimbal to a tripod without losing any of your balance settings. And the other cool thing about my experience with this is that I can actually use this with my tripod mounting system that I already have. I don't have to invest into a different kind of mounting system to support going from one thing to the next. Another cool factor is that it supports heavy cameras and rigs. The menu is also easy to navigate. As far as availability goes, you can get it on Amazon, B&H, and Adorama. I'll have those links down below in the video description. I'm going to try to keep this video pretty simple and just go over what I like and what I don't like about the Zhiyun Crane 2S. The Zhiyun Crane 2S is a beast of a gimbal. It's got features that are pretty much well known in the gimbal world from the past, but it's also incorporated some new ones. And so I just want to give you what my experience has been like using some of that stuff. So here's what I like. I like that it supports heavy cameras and lenses. I love using my A7 III and my 24-70 G Master lens. as a combo just for a lot of my different kind of work. I use it for so many different kind of shoots. I've used the Ronin S for a long time at this point, and I've tried to use my favorite camera and lens combo, but with a 50-50 shot that the gimbal would actually work or not. Many times the gimbal would just go limp as if it got tired holding up the heavy camera and lens. However, with the Crane 2S, there's not been any issues of it not supporting that heavy A7 III plus 24-70 G master lens. Also, this gimbal can hold up my Zcam E2S6 with the cage, a decent sized battery, and the Sigma 18-35 lens. That's impressive to me. With that said though, you'll have to wait till the end of the video to learn why I'm still a bit disappointed. Keeping on track with what I do like, I like the fact that you don't have to use an app to get going. With the Ronin S, there's a little bit of an inconvenience that you have to go to the app to balance the gimbal for the auto tuning. With the Crane 2S, you don't have to do that. You can navigate it right from the gimbal itself. The reason why I like not having to use an app is because I do work with a team. I have team members on my company that sometimes have to go out to a shoot, and with the DJI app, I had to have my stuff logged into that because it's attached to the company, and that's just information that doesn't need to be in the hands of everybody. So I like the fact that I can send this gimbal out with a team member and they don't have to worry about logging into an app. They don't have to be in my app. And also they don't have to worry about balancing or auto tuning within an app. You can do that all from the gimbal. This gimbal is good for run and gun shooters. Most of my shooting style is run and gun. I cover a lot of events and weddings. In many situations with uncontrolled environments, I need to be able to make quick transitions. The Crane 2S allows me to swap from a gimbal to a tripod with ease. Also, if you want to shoot in vertical, I can do so with just a few steps. Next, locking points. Each motor axis has locks to prevent the gimbal from swinging around. This is helpful for transporting, settings, and also balancing. And another fact that I want to point out about the Crane 2S is that it's lightweight. Even though that this thing is actually pretty big in stature, it does not weigh that much, at least compared to something like the Ronin S. I keep on going back to the Ronin S because that's just the gimbal I have the most experience with. The Crane 2S does support heavy cameras, but the gimbal does not add that weight badly. Trust me, your arms and back will thank you later. So we've gone over the highlights, we've gone over what I do like. It's time to go into the things that I don't like. The Zhiyun Crane 2S lives up to the old saying, you're only as strong as your weakest link. What's the weakest link? The screws are soft and end up stripping out. I was attempting to move the top motor to the bottom support so I could use my Zcam E2S6 and not have the back battery hit against the back motor of the gimbal. I was only able to get about half the screws out, and the others ended up being stripped, along with the provided Allen wrench that got stripped as well. The Crane 2S was built to support a payload of a Zcam, and I was able to balance the gimbal with the cage and the camera and a decent sized battery. However, there's not enough clearance on the back of the motor for the battery to pass by. Now granted, I could use smaller batteries on the Zcam. The problem though is that I would have to have just a ton of those on hand to use during our shoot. I could also use an external battery kind of system, but that just adds to the rig more. I like more minimal setups, and you can just see how that could be kind of cumbersome. So therefore, I needed to move the back motor down onto the bottom support. This would allow clearance, but it would also allow me to see my screen of the Sony a7 III a lot better. I can use the Sony a7 III with the current top portion, but again, the screen is blocked. I can't see everything. And I have to kind of work around that motor just to see what's on display, if things are in focus, all that kind of stuff that you use a screen for. The other thing I'm not a big fan of is that this is not a user-friendly setup experience. There's not any instructions that come with the gimbal. There's a QR code that leads to some tutorials, but the code would not work with my iPhone. I did use the other QR codes that were included with this kit, and those worked fine, so there's something wrong with that. So much of the time I had to figure out things on my own or spend time watching YouTube videos hoping that there would be things mentioned that I needed to know. Zhiyun's website does not seem to have proper instructions either, or are difficult to find. The last thing I'm not a big fan of is the lack of an essential accessory. Zhiyun does have a handful of accessories to purchase for an extra cost. That's cool, but there's one accessory at least that I think should be included with this base package, which is the extension arm. Some competitors include an extension arm with their kits, and I so appreciate it. The extension arm helps the experience a ton. The gimbal is a lot more comfortable to hold, you can attach other accessories to it, and it gives you an undercarrying position that gets some great shots. I've literally had to do this review over about 3 different times because I keep on discovering stuff that just isn't functioning the way it should. It boasts that it can do vertical video, but the issue that I've had is that my Sony a7 III cannot clear the back motor, and then I put the a6600 on it, and it clears it, but then it acts like it's too heavy. And it's using a Tamron 17-28 lens, which is a very lightweight lens. I'm not trying to put Zhiyun in a bad light, but the issue is that it's just not working well for me. I think you can get away with creating some good content with the gimbal, but there's definitely some issues that need to be worked out as far as all the different stuff I've shared in this review. Again, if there's any kind of updates, something that changes, I figure something out, that it could be user error, I'll let you know as an update in the blog post. That link will be down in the video description. And if you have any concerns, questions, and if you're having issues or a different experience than I have, please let me know in the comments. So here's my final thoughts. The Zhiyun Crane 2S overall is a great gimbal, but there's some weak points that really spoil the fun for me. I feel like I'm missing out on the action and the intention I had with this gimbal. I really want to use my Z-Cam with this gimbal. I love the idea of using a cinema camera on a gimbal. It was going to be my first chance to do so. But then the little things like poor quality screws screwed up the idea. It does get the job done well. For the other ways of using the gimbal, this will also be my go-to gimbal for my heavy camera setup. If I have any updates about my experiences, I will add to the comments of the video or to the blog post. With all that said, what do you want to know about the gimbal? I would love to make some more content about the Crane 2S and hopefully potentially be able to move that one motor down to the bottom side so I can use my Z-Cam with this gimbal. Thanks for watching, I appreciate it. If you found that this video was helpful to you, please give a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you next video.
Change the world.